I've read 31 books this year so far. Which were the best ones? The biggest disappointments? The surprises? Stick to the end in order to figure that out, because we are doing the mid-year freakout tag. Starting with the first question, which perhaps is the most important. Which is the best book that you've read this year so far? And I have 3 options. Okay, I cannot choose. There are 3. And the first one, it's a book that I recently realized it's pre-polarizing, which was really surprising to me. I read it and it really took me by surprise, and it was just what I needed at the moment in which I needed it. It's a pretty slow book, but it is very character driven and it is beautiful. It just also takes you in such a beautiful journey, and it makes you reflect around solitude, about how brave you can be, about destiny, fate, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by B. Schwab. This author, in my opinion, it's amazing because she has this ability of always transporting you into a world where things are not as it seems, in the sense of there's this savage element that she always has. There's this dark side to her characters always that I find incredibly fascinating and very relatable. And I found the story of Addie very interesting from the beginning to end. I recommend you read the first 10 pages, and if you like what you read there, you will love these. If not, perhaps not the moment. The second book I wanted to mention here, it just blew my mind. I was in a reading slump and it just took me and it just replaced me in a moment in which I absolutely loved fantasy and I loved to read, and I was consumed from minute 1. I knew this was a story that in a way I had before. It's not that the tropes are incredibly new, but there's something that you just love, and it's this perfect blend of classic and modern fantasy, and that is Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. So the first book in the Bound and the Broken series. A lot of people recommended me this book, and they were right. This story takes the best things from quest, from having friendships, for having this adventure, to also have these different animal companion, fantastical creatures, this war, this great versus evil. I just loved every minute of it, and I cannot wait to keep reading. And the third book here, it's a sci-fi standalone, which completely blew my mind. I am fascinated about the brain. I studied neuroscience, and there's something about this book that just took me in the best moment in which I needed it. It's plot, it is so fascinating. It just, the pacing, it's non-stop. I wanted it for a moment in which I needed something fast because I wanted to get out of the slump, and boy, did I get out. This book, it's outstanding, and that is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This story, it's fairly similar in the tropes to Black Matter, which is also a story that is very popular about this author, and the idea is that you will always have this thriller, these different points of view, and there's always these sci-fi elements. There's usually a little bit of time travel related to it, and specifically this book talked about memories and the role of those memories in our lives. And I thought it was just so interesting, and it was so very well done, and I'm still thinking about that book and how it unfolded, and I was so fascinated by it. Second question, best sequel you've read so far this year, and for me that needs to be The Dragon Reborn, which is book 3 in the Wheel of Time series. I'm doing a read along with my patrons, and we're reading 1 book a month, and I gotta say this book absolutely mesmerized me. It took everything that we knew from these characters and it just elevated it. The stakes are way higher, and in this book I was able to know a little bit more about the magic, about the characters. Just the stakes is a quest, and it is this chosen one trope. There's just so much more. I really recommend starting Wheel of Time. It is such a trip. New release you haven't read, but I want to. I really want to pick Warm Hands of Ghost by Catherine Arden. Promises to be a historical fantasy in which we'll have ghosts and we'll have war. And there's something about Catherine Arden, which is the writer of the Winter Night trilogy, that it really talks to me. I haven't read the whole series, but there's just this unique way in which she talks to the audience, and that transports you to a world that really calls me. I've read from this book that it's not the exact prose as we are used to in The Bear and the Nightingale, for example, but I am still confident that I will really love this story. I also read from this author the middle grade stories, and they were also great, so I think I will really enjoy these. Question number 4, we have most anticipated release for the second half of the year. the fact that my favorite author is going to conclude the first arc of my favorite series terrifies me and really excites me at the same time. I'm talking about Wind and Truth, Book 5 in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I am so obsessed about this story. I will probably start rereading the whole series. As of now, it's going to be a really, really long series, but it's going to be separated in 2 main arcs. And the first one is gonna end here. I am terrified and I cannot wait. I will probably just call sick at work just so that I can read more. If you haven't started Stormlight, this is the best moment for you. Question number 5, perhaps the juiciest, the one that we are all here to check, which was your biggest disappointment? And I also have 2. The first one is from this author that it's incredibly popular, that usually writes young adult, but she also has written some adult stories. And this was a standalone, which in my heart, it's always points. I adore them. And especially this one was supposed to have these gray characters. And also it was set in Spain, which is where I live, specifically in Madrid. So I thought this was going to be the perfect book for me. I'm going to be head over heels over this. This is going to be very similar to Six of Crows, just better. But it wasn't. I'm talking about The Familiar by Lee Verdugo. This story was such a disappointment to me. I'm super happy if you were able to read it and enjoy it, and obviously if you loved it, all the better. But for me, this was so underwhelming. Just the magic felt really, really not that great. It felt like it could have been more. The fact that this magic was these milagritos, which was like this little magic, these little miracles, it wasn't enough for me to make a compelling story. And then the character, it wasn't enough. The male perspective, female perspective, nothing was really there for me. But especially what killed it was the magic. And perhaps it was because I'm Spanish and I was able to understand the words, but there were so many words that were bad said. And I understand that's the point. Like, she was merging different languages, Spanish, Italian, Greek. Still, it made it for a really, really weird experience. And I read it, it was fine, but I thought it was going to be one of my favorites. The other one, I'm not sure if I'm ready to share it, because it's one of those stories that fantasy fans considered one of the best books. However, perhaps because my expectations were incredibly high, or perhaps because I'm slightly sick and I was not able to get the gist of the situation, I must say that one of my biggest disappointments this year has been The Shadow Rising, book 4 in the Wheel of Time series. This has not been a bad book, let's take that clear. It was a disappointment for me because it's the chunkiest so far, and I was really, really expecting it to level up. Everyone told me, oh my god, if you loved Dragon Reborn, you will love this one. And beginning was incredibly strong, but the romances are just so weird. I cringe so hard, and I really, really will die on the hill that this book could have been shorter. Question number 6, we have, which has been your biggest surprise? And I am so happy to share a book from an author that I've read almost everything, and I really, really enjoyed his tone of adventure plus humor. And in this case, it was something that it was slightly out of my comfort zone because it was humor, but it was also this thriller, and it was in this world that has been pitched as Attack on Titans, which is just really interesting. And it was such a delight, and that is A Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the same author as the Founders trilogy, which I absolutely adored. And although in here we go differently and we don't have such a fast pace, which I absolutely love, and we don't have that incredible quest, we have a mystery to resolve here. And that mystery, it takes us to different places, and there's just this character that it is really, really, really smart, and this other character that it's also smart but in a different way, and it makes for a perfect blend of humor, like good cop, bad cop. It was really, really great. I really recommend. It was just in a breeze I read this. Question number 7, new favorite author. This can be new debut or new to me, and I'm gonna say here Blake Crouch, the author of Dark Matter and Recursion. I knew I needed to read his books, but for some reason I thought the sci-fi element was going to be incredibly hard to access, and that pushed me down for a little bit. But wow, I gotta say, his standalones are something else. If you want to read something addictive, this is what you read. This is the type of story that you start and that immediately after you resent not starting it when you have like 5 hours to just read. I adored this author and I really want to continue reading his works. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. I am forever in love with Lan, also from Wheel of Time. I gotta say, since the moment in which I saw him in the TV series, I was like, okay, we're a match. Being honest, he hasn't been still that great in the books, but I really like his character, his idea, his morals. Newest favorite character, and I hope you appreciate how silly my answer is going to be here, because it's not going to be a human. It's going to be a god, but it's going to be turned into a small creature that does not remember like how this happened, and it has the greatest humor that can be written, and it is from the book Small Gods from Terry Pratchett. So this character, it's this turtle that he was supposed to be this massive god, like everyone believed in him, and he was like one day like, yes, I'm going to turn myself into this beautiful bull and I'm going to be amazing. And turns out he turned himself into a turtle and spent 3 years there because he did not remember like what happened. And it just, every time that he was on a page, it was hilarious. I didn't enjoy this book as much as Gods, but definitely it's one of those characters that I'm not going to be able to forget. Question number 10, a book that made you cry. And I don't believe that I've cried, like sobbed this year, but there's a book that really made me sad, or that almost made me cry, really made me reflect and made me feel all the feels. It's that kind of story that you need to read slowly, that you need to savor, and that definitely you need to be on the right mood, because it's this blend of romance plus almost adventure, but it has a lot of sci-fi, and it just is a story that you need to almost trust the process of reading it. And that is, This Is How You Lose the Time War. This is a story, I started reading it last year and I DNF'd it because I was like, nope.
This is not the type of story that I like.
Take it again this year, and I was so surprised. I actually really liked it. It's sad because we are following these two characters that are on opposite sides of the time war, and they are writing letters to each other. How they find these letters, it's very bizarre and it's very weird, but you see how they spend lives separated and how they get to grow and they get to see each other. And it was not sad, but it was really it was something. It's a beautiful read. On the other side, we have which book has made you happy? And in here, I have two. The first one, it's Gods by Terry Pratchett, which is a standalone that you can read and love. It's a brilliant entry to this world, and you will be following these different characters that are all so incredibly remarkable. There's this naive character, the one that is like more savvy, and all in all there's this beautiful blend of humor. I was cackling out loud, and you know, there's these gods that need to fight something terrible that is happening, but they don't really want to do that. It's hilarious. I was really, from page 1, really enjoying myself, and I really believe that if you want to try Pratchett, this is one of the best books that you can try. The second book that really made me happy was Howl's Moving Castle. Yes, I know, I read this just this year. It was recommended to me because I asked for something short but yet great, and this delivered in both senses. It was so short that I was able to read it in just 2 sittings, and also it was so cozy, so great. I know this is a story that it feels like everyone has heard about it, so I'm just gonna say that I loved it because this male main character, it's supposed to be really, you know, disgusting. He's terrible, but there's something with the writing style that just, it's so easy to fall in love with him and to just laugh and to just feel that you like this character. That in itself, it made for a whole experience to be delightful. Question number 12, which is the most beautiful book that you've bought or that you've received? I just gotta say that I absolutely adore this version of The Adventures of Amina. Sirafi. It's not only that it is just so remarkable and it's so cohesive with the story that you see. It also has such a beautiful, vibrant map, and the whole story is also pretty good. It's incredibly solid, and I enjoyed this quest. But if you just see this book, it is simple. It leans more into this is art for me. It is not like super crowded, but I absolutely adore this edition. Let me know if you like it or if you have it. Another book that I got, in this case I was so fortunate I got these. It's The Iron Crown, and look at this beautiful, incredibly outstanding edition. It's not only that it has golden edges, and it has this amazing, do you see? Like cover, which I don't believe that I've ever had something that feels and is as beautiful, but also the whole book, it's so beautiful. Now, last year I also did a question that was more related to the channel than the books, which is the best video that you've released so far. In my opinion, it was this incredible collaboration that was able to put together with these amazing booktubers that I admire and respect in order to find the most underrated fantasy books. And every time that I write any of these booktubers and they answer to me, I am in awe. I just don't understand how amazing this community is until I see your comments or until I contact other people, and it still blows my mind that I'm able to talk with them. So I am forever grateful for that, and also hopefully it also helped you out finding great underrated book recommendations. The last question is which books you need to read by the end of the year, and in here I want to do something different, and I really want to start Melassan, the Book of the Fallen. I believe I've gone a long journey since I started my booktube channel and I started reading fantasy again, but Melassan, it's what I've been hearing time and time again. It's just such a favorite for a lot of different readers, and I feel I won't like it, but I really want to try it. I want to see if the pain of not liking the book it's real or if it's just in my head. So let me know down below which will be the books that fill these answers, the best ones, the worst ones, the most disappointing, your favorite surprises. If you're liking this content so far, consider joining my Patreon. We have a book club, so every month we read and discuss a book. There's also reading sprints, we have game nights, and all in all there's this amazing community, and we just have so much fun, and they are so amazing. So thank you to all of you who support me and my passion. I am forever grateful to you. If you want to read something addictive, this is what you drink. If you blah, blah. Question number 1. No, you don't like it? Question 2. Sueña. How much you suffer.